Peter, welcome.
Hey,
Thank you for coming.
So amazing.
Guys, this is an exciting one. I think the last time I had a proper conversation with him was almost 6 years ago in the basement of Harbert Street. That's where all the crazy conversations happen. So I'm very excited. This one's going to be a very important, informative conversation because there's a lot happening in the industry. Obviously, there's a lot of history behind me and you, but I have a lot of questions because I'm actually genuinely curious about like what's happened since I've left and like we already had a quick conversation of where your mindset's at behind the business side of things. And obviously everyone knows this, you're extremely, what's the word I'm looking for? You've done very well,
Thank you.
right? You've done very well. Obviously, like if it wasn't for Glassbox, I'll say it as well, I wouldn't be in the position that I'm in today. I wouldn't have Silver Arrow. So you guys obviously paved the way for our industry in North America, in my opinion, right? A lot of people obviously know you guys, but what people don't maybe know is your past before Glassbox, who Peter was.
Right.
So I think we need to touch up on that. Like, how did you even become a barber? Because I personally know that you were a drummer, you were in music, but how does someone from music transition to barbering? Like that, to me, does not really correlate. How does that happen?
Well, firstly, thank you for having me. I feel like this is the conversation no one asked for, but is happening. And there is a lot of history for me and you. And
Yes.
I'm generally honored to be here. And I'm very proud of your success, to be honest with you.
Thank you.
You know, that's an interesting question when people ask me, like, what is the backstory? And I think people know Peter Gosling of 2015 Glassbox.
Exactly.
But there's 10 years prior to that.
Exactly
Right?
that.
I worked with the Aveda network. I worked at Chivello Salons. I worked
So you were a hairdresser.
I was a hairdresser, yeah. You know, and then around probably about my 5th year into the industry, the barber boom was starting to happen. And you could see these traditional barbershops were opening. People were interested. And I noticed something as well. A lot of the guys were no longer visiting the salon.
So let me ask you this. Let's go back there. How did you notice that there was a change in the industry where barbering was booming? Like, what was your first initial thought of like, okay, there's a change happening here?
Well, interestingly enough, dude, when I came out of hairdressing school, I was instantly charging $55.
Wow.
But then I started going around to like house parties and meeting friends, and I realized I'm not cutting my friends anymore. And I'm asking them why, and they're like, well, this new barbershop just opened and it's cool, and they're charging $26. So I'm like, oh, and it wasn't about them not being friends, is they were looking at what the value was.
Right.
Right? So I was like, damn. So I started to realize
As in
again,
they weren't willing to pay 55.
they weren't, you know what I mean? And again, you got to remember you're growing with your demographic,
And back
right?
in the day, 55 was like $100.
Literally, it was like, you know, we're talking 20 years ago. This is
Right.
my 20th year in the industry, right?
Wow. Yeah.
So, you know, for me looking at that, I was like, okay, well, this isn't good. And then coming from, you know, Sassoon's training that I did with my educators who were all at Aveda, they'd all done Sassoon's, and that's who trained us, you know, Morgan Roy, Tristan Morrison, you know, really solid people and my mentors. You know, I had this really great foundation, but we were doing scissor over comb haircuts. And a lot of guys were also like, oh, you know, I could get a clipper cut and I could be in and out. And we were told at certain places that a clipper cut was cheap and inexpensive, but I realized that it was because we weren't educated in it, right? So I started to see that not only my friends were not coming back to the salon, right? But I was like, there's this new wave that's coming.
Okay.
So I was like, damn, I need to go get a job at a barbershop. So I was working full-time at Chivello and working part-time at a barbershop.
But you already had your license at this point, right?
Yes, I literally, yeah. I mean, you kind of had to, you know, back in the day, that was like a big thing.
But
you know,
let's go back a little bit. Why transition from music to hair? Is
well,
it like
I never not played. Like, I mean, I was playing music from such a young age, so I was always playing in bands through the whole thing.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
It wasn't a career. It was tough to make money. Was that the thing?
Well, funny enough, I mean, this can also be a tough career to make money. You know what I mean? Because it takes a lot of practice, dedication, and discipline, and it's much like an instrument, to be honest with you, right? So for me, again, looking back now, you know, music was such a huge part of things, and I looked at music to take inspiration from fashion and hair. So, you know, believe it or not, when I had hair, I cared about my hair because you're in a band and you want to look cool.
We should put a picture of what Peter looked like with hair as well.
Yeah, absolutely. We can definitely share a photo, you know? But for me, like, music and hair and fashion are all very close.
Similar. Exactly.
Right? Like, you look at your, like, look at your favorite artists and, like, you take inspiration from how they dress and, you know, what they look like and what their hair looks like. You know what I mean? So that's kind of where it all correlated. And again, they worked very simultaneously together because, you know, a hairdresser's life can actually give you the ability to have a nightlife as well. So I was able to go to rehearsals and jam with bands, but I also built such a massive clientele of musicians in the city of Toronto. It was nuts.
Yes, I knew this because
you know what I mean?
Every single client when I was working for you was pretty much your really good friend.
Yeah.
You had a clientele of just really good friends of yours.
And tons of musicians.
Right.
And other musicians would be like, go get your hair cut by Peter. And I've cut like major bands.
Yeah,
like, my good friend Pat is the guitar player in the weekend.
The other guy of the OVO that used to come to you.
Plaza.
There we go.
Yeah, but Mike was the singer of my band.
Okay.
Right? So shout out to Mike and shout out to Pat. I used to cut Pat's hair as well as the guitar player in the weekend.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And like I've cut a lot of a lot of big musicians in Toronto and a lot of great people. And again, those people from going to shows and networking from them would know that I was a barber or a hairdresser, and I would just build a clientele there. And that's why I always tell people, like, the more you can get out there physically is the busier you're going to get as a barber as well.
100%.
But here's the funny thing. Social media didn't exist. There was no Instagram. You could think about when we started. You could only put up a photo.
Back then, exactly.
It was strictly a photo.
You weren't really attracting clients from that as well. I didn't get any clients back then.
No, because that was for the industry.
Exactly.
Right? And I'm sure
it was pictures for the industry, yes.
And
to show off like what your haircuts look like.
And who was your market? It was other barbers following barbers.
Exactly.
Now, that's why I think there's no excuse now to not be busy.
Exactly.
Right? And that's hard for people to really understand. But again, it comes down to discipline. And I think that using social media as a tool is important. But let's go back here. So again, I see the gap here of the market. I'm like, man, this is going to change. Hairdressing and barbering is really going to...
And you're in Travello at this time.
I'm at Travello at the time, right? And
So you hadn't worked at a barbershop yet?
No, I couldn't even use clippers.
Right, because you came from a hairdressing background.
Dude, we were like using...
Because Travello doesn't teach you how to hold
No, well, at the Aveda Institute, which was a great school, and I did the academy, like, dude, we never picked up clippers. It wasn't a thing. Right, yeah. Right? It was sort of considered, again, like
So how would you learn back then how to use clippers?
I had to go to a barbershop.
Right.
But I saw the gap in the market that wasn't necessarily about not, again, I was charging a higher price at the salon, but I realized that this tool was going to be popular. And when you start to see people who I'd gone to hairdressing school, and these guys were like, well, I'm just going to go be a barber now and clip over comb and put lay right in someone's hair. I was like, man, am I losing business to guys who are not as trained as well as I am? So you start to think differently, right? And I was like, man, I'm going to go learn this skill because I think it's going to come in handy, right? So I went to work for Roger Janes, who owns Blood and Bandages, who's one of the OG barbershops in Toronto. And he's still going, and I got a lot of respect and love for Roger for taking me on. And he showed me how to use clippers. Do you know what I mean? And there was a girl that worked there. Her name was Laura. She was in my institute class. She went straight out right to barbering, and she's still a barber today. And she's got a massive clientele, and she's done really well.
So interesting how you went from becoming a hairdresser to becoming a barber, where what's happening now is barbers are becoming hairdressers.
Right. But this was the gap in the market, which attracted both myself and you. And I don't know if people really know that you and I met in the UK. Yes. We didn't meet in Canada.
So you're at Blood and Bandages. At this point, Glassbox is not a thing.
No.
Right?
No.
So how many years were you working in Blood and Bandages?
I did 2 years there, and then went down to Bellwoods Barbers and did another 2 years.
Oh, so you did Bellwoods was after Blood and Bandages.
Yeah, okay. But here's the thing. Let's talk about another gap in the market. And I think I do have a gift of industry forecasting. I really can forecast where things are going to go.
Funny enough, I actually wrote it there, which I won't say now, but we'll transition
so
into
again,
that.
I mean, I went to work for Shane afterwards, and Shane was a great barber as well. And
Shane works for you now.
Shane does work for us now, yeah. And we love him to death. But again, the traditional thing was going out. And I was like, we've gone through phases again and again. History does tend to repeat itself. So we went through all the traditional stuff and like Boardwalk Empire and the Fury haircut with Brad Pitt. But I was like, man, hair's going to change again. And I had the scissor skills, right? And again, you start to see other things on Instagram. And obviously Ruger had come into it. Menspire had come into it. And you're starting to see what they're doing. And that's when I was like, man, I don't really want to have this like style barbershop.
Yeah.
Again, we wanted to make it a little bit more open, a little bit more of a Scandinavian concept. And, we want it to, I've always said to people
more modern, a little bit of hairdressing.
Well, for sure, right? But I felt like we were lacking on shampooing and product education, blow drying, all those things. So again, myself and Andrew at a house party, and this is kind of the story as I was like...
So let's talk, because people don't know, who is Andrew?
So Andrew's my business partner. We went to high school together. We've known each other since we were 14. Do you know what I mean? And his older brother as well. And we grew up skateboarding together.
Yeah, I was going to say skateboarding was kind of how you guys became
similar
friends.
to music, skateboarding culture has a lot of fashion. Yeah. But you know what's funny about skateboarding? It's sort of a singular thing, but you can still be on a team. Do you know what I mean?
How does that work?
Well, I mean, when you're actually doing the activity of skateboarding, you're doing it alone.
True.
But you can be on a skateboard team.
Doing it together.
It's like a gang, you know what I mean? And that's always been sort of myself and Andrew's mentality. We've always wanted like-minded, cool, creative, expressive people around us. And I think that a lot of people...
Which you probably brought that into the business, right? That
For sure. For sure. You know what
concept.
I mean? And that's the thing is we wanted to make it an eclectic place for dysfunctional adults to be successful. It's kind of the idea. Well, that's what a barbershop or a salon is at times. You look at all these people from different walks of life and you're like, you're running in a dysfunctional playground for adults.
It's so true.
But they're artists, you know what I mean? And it's hard to place artists in a box completely. So you do have to let people, and that comes into management, which has changed,
tremendously now.
And as I said, to you earlier, the manager you had and the owner you had is not the manager you have today. And I've gotten better. And I think that there's a lot of stuff that you have to learn, But Andrew and I have known each other since we were really young.
Okay. So you and Andrew, but you guys are friends when does the conversation happen of like, okay, let's open a business together? How does that happen?
Well, again, we were at a house party, having a couple beers, and I just said to Andrew, I was like, you know what? I think that there's a change happening. Wasn't necessarily happy where I was working at the time because I just felt like I was ready to have some growth. And I wanted to do something different, which again, fused the hairdressing and the barbering together. And I didn't think that that was going to happen where I was working. And it wouldn't have just been where I was working. There would have been any barbershop. They'd already been in their way.
It was just not what you were trying to build or not.
And I think, the test of time has sort of proved what Glassbox came and did. Again, no one knew who I was, right? Only people in the hair industry kind of knew who I was because the hair industry and the barber industry at that time was really no crossover. So again, I'm at this house party. I said to Andrew, I'm like, yo, man, I'm thinking I want to open a business. And we're like having a joke. And he goes, I'll be your partner, right? His own brother even was like, you're crazy to go into business with Peter, right? But now Rob has come around and been like, yo, it was probably a great decision, But I think, I also had something to prove and I wanted to show to people that I was able to build something in the physical world. Do you know what I mean? And I think that's a lot of, and again, that first year of Glassbox, I worked 365. Literally worked 365 until that next year you joined me.
Right.
Like it was me and Dylan on our own.
Do you feel like in your life, like you were like business savvy at all? Like how does that brain, like for me, I feel like I could see traits of when I was younger apply to my business, right? Like I was an entrepreneur and selling like jeans and stuff in high school from eBay and selling at a very young age at 14. I had my own clothing line, like, at 15, trying to sell garments and stuff.
You ever managed a band?
No.
Yeah, well, I've been in many.
Okay.
And managing people in bands is difficult. You got a lot of people.
So you already had a bit of like a managerial background. You understood people.
Well, that's why tour managers exist, because what they have to do at the end of the show is called the wrangling. Buddy's over there with a girl. This guy's not loading out equipment, singer status, bass player's drunk somewhere, like whatever. Do you know what I mean? So for me, I started to realize, I'm like, okay, I got to manage all these guys. I got to get everything in the van. We got to get to the next show. It's the
that
same
was
concept.
You, because you guys couldn't afford a fucking tour manager.
I'm a bit of a control freak in that sense. Well, yeah, because I cared about the business, the brand, and the band. And you got to remember, a band is a brand. So I just translated a lot of my manager skills that I was already doing, managing my rehearsal space, managing practices, managing artists. Like I thought at one point I was going to probably go into artist management.
Wow.
Right? Because at the end of the day, and this is what we'll talk about when we get to what me and you are doing in Toronto, is we deal with people.
Yeah.
And if you want to be a great business owner, you have to be great with people. That is the reality. And if you're not able to manage people, this is not for you.
Agreed.
Right?
Yeah. Cool. So now Glassbox is, I guess, alive. You and Andrew have a conversation.
Yep.
You start at least, start figuring out. You had Dylan as well as a business partner.
Absolutely.
So you guys all kind of came together. You guys are like thinking of opening this business.
Yep.
What year is this?
This is 2015, like probably around springtime 2015, and Glassbox opened November 2015.
Okay.
Right? And I actually looked that up yesterday because I knew we were coming up on 10 years, but I wanted to make sure.
10 years when?
November 27th.
Wow.
Yeah, 10-year anniversary of Glassbox.
Unbelievable.
Which is cool because we opened the school in the same year we're having
the 10 years.
Yeah. It's kind of a lot.
So I guess like what's your, not perspective, but what was your initial thoughts going into the business, and what was the reality of the situation when you had the business? Do you feel like you kind of got kicked in the balls thinking that it was going to be a certain way when you started opening, or were you very much aware of how things were going to go?
I knew that we were going to be able to translate what we were doing where we were working into a space that would be successful. Do you know what I mean? Because I knew that I was dedicated enough to continuously getting better at cutting hair. I knew that, we were going to be stepping into a lot of new territory, especially managing. And, my biggest advice to people, again, is I'm like, make sure you work at 5 different places, to really see how people operate, to make sure you don't want to do that or you do want to do that. And that was like my biggest thing. I saw certain things that I wanted to do and certain things that I didn't like. And that's just the God's honest truth. And I was like, we're not going to do that here, and we're going to do this here. And that comes even down to like, I loved working at Chiavello, and the times were different then, but the reality is that even sometimes the way they treated employees was a little bit stern. And I'm grateful for that because I needed structure. But I was like, we got to make sure that we have flexibility here. And again, the world has changed drastically.
Of course.
Do you know what I mean? So again,
and I think a big catalyst of your business. So everyone now talks about precision-based cutting, but what people don't realize, I think we were like one of the first in the market in North America to do it.
For sure.
And I guess like, at what point did you feel like this is where the shift is happening? Yeah. Because now I think it's the biggest thing. It's everyone's talking about precision-based cutting.
For sure.
But what people don't realize is like when I was working for you is like, we were actually getting hated on for doing precision-based cutting. We weren't getting, people weren't loving us for that.
No.
People love us now for it because it's kind of become the thing. But what people don't realize, for the first 5 years, actually was getting hated on a lot.
Well, dude,
we were section gods. We were like wasting our time doing that stuff. And We were like the guys that is like, what the fuck are these people doing?
Well, that's because people turned around and started to look at what we were charging. And that the client also shifted to being like, you know what? I'm happy to stay an extra 15 minutes. I'm happy to get a hot towel. I'm happy to get a shampoo. I'm happy to be educated on how to blow dry my hair. I'm happy to leave with the product that I want. And I think the market started to ask for more because they realized there was more.
And the service got better, though.
For sure.
The quality of the haircut was amazing.
For sure.
Right?
And you got to remember, and again, this is no knock to the traditional shops or even the shops in Toronto that were there. I felt like we were having clients coming in and people were treating it factory line and not the one size fit all. So if you're giving everyone the same clipper over comb and slicking it back with layrite, they're going home washing their hair and be like, this is not how my hair reacts. We started to look at, and this is what we always say to people now, is like, we became the hair geeks. Of being like, how is the material going to react?
We're scientists.
For sure. Do you know what I mean? And being like, how do we make it better? Because I think the idea is we wanted to master the material. Like a carpenter, like anybody who works with something, again, physically, wanted to be able to be the best. And if you think about it now, you and I can look at a haircut and we can decipher, even before we cut the hair, how exactly we want it to look, how we want it to feel.
And we're able to control it and get the end result exactly how we think in our heads it's going to be.
Right, because you've studied it.
Yes.
Right? Where we look at old barbers now and they were just like, well, this is just how it has to look. And again, people are visual, but that's not going to be the same for everybody.
Exactly.
Right? Now, I agree with you. I feel like a lot of people did not like what we were doing and making fun of us and, you know, why would you do that? And this takes time. And I was like, cool, but we've also stopped doing 22 haircuts. We're doing 10 and charging more. Right? So I think the quality of life changed as well.
Yeah.
And that's when people were like, well, why am I going to go work here and do 22 haircuts a day? Right? And people at Glassbox or Menspire or Ruger are doing beautiful work and being able to charge more for it. And like you talk about in your own program, there's price points and people for every shop and every barber. But again, now that it's become so popular, you look how we've championed the industry and how it's I think it's half the market. Hairdressing used to be up here and barbering was down here. We're like pretty even now, I think, at this point.
So what do you think happens next? I feel like you've done a really good job on figuring out where the industry was headed back then. You saw precision cutting, you were the first to see it, right? And then you made the decision, you went to Menspire, got the techniques and brought it back to Toronto.
For sure.
What are you seeing now in the industry? What do you think is happening?
Again, I think that, first of all, if you're not well-rounded, you're leaving money on the table, number one. If you walk into a barbershop now and you're like, well, I don't do that style of hair, well, I think you're kind of crazy because you're basically saying no to money. So number one, I think that more people are driven to understand that they want to be able to do it all. Do you know what I mean? And I think the next thing for me personally is, again, styles will always be ever occurring. You know what I mean? When people talk about trends in hair, I'm like, we're constantly recycling styles and trends. Like Brad Pitt just shaved his head. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
All my staff have buzz cuts right now.
Yeah.
Right? I feel pretty cool. You know what I mean? Everyone's got buzz cuts right now, which is kind of interesting. But I still think the biggest thing that we're even still lacking a tiny bit in this industry is professionalism. And I think if you truly have professionalism that goes with the technical skill, right?
Then you could charge whatever
You can, and it's not only charging whatever, it's that I think people want to be treated kindly, nicely, respectfully. They want to come to a place. And the big thing that Andrew and I did is we didn't want hair cutting to feel like a chore. We wanted it to be like, I'm excited to go to Glassbox.
Right.
I'm excited to see my barber. I'm excited to see what they're wearing, what they're listening to. Like, people aren't building a culture.
I just had a conversation with Veronica. She's one of the students in our program. And she had such a good thing that she mentioned, which is so true. Like, at the end of the day, men were providers generally, right? So when we think of when we think of our lives, we're always providing, like, you know, for women specifically, we get nails for them, we get their lashes done, we take care of them, right?
Yeah.
We're the last people we take care of ourselves.
Sure.
So sometimes it just becomes a chore, like, let's just get it done, like cut my hair. But when you take, as a service provider, when you take a minute to realize, like, no, I'm actually going to be in service of them and making sure that they feel that I actually care about them and making them feel like, no, this is a time for you to relax and enjoy this service, and like allowing that energy to kind of be reciprocated. I think that's when you're able to keep that client and bring referrals back, because now you're actually not treating it as a transaction and treating it as an individual that you care about.
Well, I mean, and I think you've done a great job with that on LTC, because, you know, and at first, I'll be honest with you, when people were telling me what you were doing, I didn't get it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And maybe that actually shows how dated or how old I can be, because I was like, but it actually took one of my staff to get it. And then I went through it and I was like, yo, this is actually quite valuable information, because I remember you, and this is funny for the viewers as well, is like, you were good at getting clients. You used to stop people on bikes, dude. I remember I used to laugh.
Well,
I'm like, this guy's a loony
It's because you fucking told me.
Well, I had no choice. I was like, get out there on the street. But that's because we were analog. And that's my training versus what training is now. And again, I think a lot of business owners are sometimes closed off to people like you changing things. I had to be more accepting of that things are also changing. And I think that's what keeps you not behind the 8 ball, but at least on top of it and progressive, you know?
Yeah.
So the thing is that social media, like when we started was photos, now you can use social media to build clients.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? And like, again, I noticed that a lot of my own lifestyle stuff actually hits way more on socials now than it does a haircut. That's just speaking to a barber
now.
right? But again, going back to your student Veronica, she's right. Like I think that if you're able to do certain things, and again, like I think bleach and tones are going to be huge. I think the better you get at even color and bringing those salon aspects into your salon or your barbershop, now you're talking about you can do a haircut and a bleach and tone on someone. Now you're going from a 55 low end
$200-$300.
Oh, dude. So what if you did 3 or 4 bleach and tones in a day and then you did a haircut? Man, you're now tripling your margin, right? So again, like we've seen certain things that have happened in Glassbox, like perming. You know what I mean? Like we're trying to push perming more because there's a lot of people who want it. A lot of
younger guys want it too.
Absolutely, right? If you got straight hair and you want the broccoli top, like you're gonna have to get it permed. Do you know what I mean? So I think it comes down to like not necessarily, I think we're at a really good point here of like where the industry has now leveled up. And I always say to people, I'm like, the money that we were charging, and my good friend Steve in Boston was talking about this. He goes, the money that we were charging was like 90s, early 2000 prices. I think we're at fair market value now.
Okay.
I think if you're charging less than 50, you're crazy.
Yeah.
I think a minimum across Canada, I don't care if you're in a small town.
Yeah.
Canadian.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But even in the States, like I think that you should be around minimum
40, 50.
like somewhere in there, like to make it worth your time.
I agree. Yeah.
You know what I mean? And again, I think the client is also asking for more. So you have to look at time versus value. And then again, I think if you can make a really amazing experience with a lot of love that goes into your technical skill, right? But also educate the client on a couple different things, that's when they become not only a client, but that's when they become a friend.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And that's when they start to support you more.
Cool, man.
You know?
This is a great feedback here. All right. This is where I personally have these questions for you, and then we'll transition this to talking about what we're going to do, because a lot of people probably wondering about that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what do you feel was like the darkest moment you faced as a barber or business owner that almost made you quit? Is there one specific time that you could think of that was like, this was very hard and you didn't see an end to it?
Well, like I said earlier, I think a dark moment is like when you quit. When you quit, and that was around COVID time, and I don't want to get into COVID because we're over talking about that. But I think that when you have that first initial team that you've built, their friends, their family, you've had dinners with them, we've had Christmas parties, that was hard when you lose that first initial powerhouse team. And you got to remember, we had like some of the best in the business working for us at that time. Do you know what I mean? Like if you think about it, we had
the Michael Jordan's team at some point.
It was like 93 Bulls.
Exactly.
Do you know what I mean? Of precision cutting in Canada.
We had myself, Hugo, Dylan, you,
Jack, Josh Murray,
Jack Louis, for people that don't know.
Yeah,
Josh
Murray. I mean, and then we had other people coming up.
Kozwolski.
Yep.
Carol.
Yep. Yeah. We had Carol. We had Glenn from Menspire when he was with us for 6 months. Like it was insane. Dude, I remember sometimes looking at the haircuts being like, oh shit, we're on. You know what I mean? Like everything was like no air balls. You know what I mean? It was like, it was a pretty interesting time. And again, that's when we were probably getting the most hate as well.
Yeah.
I think there's always moments of like losing team members, which is really difficult to do because you're so focused on the negative. Like, are they going to affect my business? Like you start thinking all this stuff. But like I said to you, I think as a business owner, and this is what I teach in my own business owners program, is you can't always be worried about what the other people leaving are doing. You got to worry about the people staying.
So I think this is important to touch up on.
Yeah.
Right. I think we could definitely have some value here on this podcast that I think people could benefit from. The question I get asked all the time are these two questions. One is, how do you get stuff? And I think you've done an incredible job. I mean, you told me you get 30 people every single day that are asking.
The resumes we're getting now, I'm at like almost 30 a week.
30 people every single week want to work for your business.
A week.
That is insane.
I can show it to you.
Insane. I believe you.
I swear to God.
So
I can open up my phone right now, and there's probably on the Glassbox page, the Institute page.
Most people wouldn't believe you because they can't fathom people asking them for opportunities, right? So what have you done there? Like, how do you do it, right? Like, what got you to this position to be able to do it? And then another one is, how do you keep talent?
So to answer that, first of all, this is why I haven't put some of this information online. And that's why I tell them to come to the school and take my business owners program, because I have to show you physically how we've done it.
Yeah, we could talk about this for 10 hours.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So for me, it's building culture. It's building a culture.
What are the pillars that
building culture? You have to build a culture of where people can see that it's not always about money, but what kind of growth you can give them. I don't promise anything to anybody anymore. I think that's another major mistake that business owners make, is they're like, if you come here, you're going to be an educator and you're going to be a manager and you're going to be this, this, and this. Well, dude, if you say that and then you don't deliver that, then they become
You're
describe-
dangling the
Well,
carrot.
exactly,
And then they
like,
start,
reel them in, and
because
then
their
you don't deliver.
expectation might be like, okay, I'm gonna get there in 2 weeks.
No.
Meanwhile, like, dude, it takes you 3-4 years,
No.
right? So
funny enough,
be careful. You gotta be careful.
funny
what
enough,
say.
you talking about the '93 Bulls, because I watched The Last Dance on repeat.
It's such a
On
cinch.
repeat, right? And I listened to the Founders podcast where that guy talks about the Jordan all the time.
Right.
Like
Tim, you're talking about Tim.
I forget the guy's name on the Founders podcast.
Founders podcast.
Yeah, it's a really good podcast. But he talks about. Are you thinking Tim Ferriss?
No. I'm thinking about, he wrote a book about it. He coached Michael Jordan. He coached.
Oh,
Kobe
Phil
Bryant.
McKnight?
No, his name's
Or not
Tim.
Phil
He's a
McKnight.
coach. Anyways, it's a
Yeah,
really
yeah.
good book. I can't remember it.
Well, anyways, what I was going to say to you is, you know, for us, like, I switched my mindset of being like not an owner. I was like, how do we get a team to perform? You got to be a coach. Being a coach is way different because you want to have to deal with each player individually and build the culture. And I think what we did is we built a great culture, right? I think that's number one. And then how do you retain employment? You have to build employee roadmaps. If you don't have an employee roadmap and you can't show like the evolution of man, and I'm talking like, you know, those posters of like it coming out of the water, you know, growing into a full grown
BC.
Yeah, exactly. You know what I mean? Like, we now show you when you onboard, which we'll talk about when we do our program.
Right.
I'm going to give that to people at such a cheap value because that's what you don't have. So when I go into these people's businesses and I do my Gordon Ramsay's kitchen nightmare, I'm like, show me your onboarding process. And they're like, I don't have one. I'm like, that's
There
why.
you go.
You answered your own question, right? You don't have a strategy of how to.
There's no structure.
Cool.
Yeah.
So I could just go on LinkedIn and pluck somebody from you instantly because I can just show them what kind of structure we have here, whether people like it or not. And I get it. I know we're dealing with artists. You have to have structure, and a lot of people are looking for stability.
So this is the thing, right? Most barbers, this is the thing that I always say, open barbershops, still being barbers in their own business, and they actually just employ themselves in their own business. At what point and how can they just turn from an artist, a barber? Because you still need those characteristics.
For sure.
But at what point and how would they be able to become a barber to a barbershop owner and become a business owner and become, because you're going to have to wear the hats initially until you have enough leverage to be able to delegate them and find people to do it for you. How do you do that?
Well, you and I both read the E-Myth, right? And
Yes.
that was a big book for us, right? So again, I think I read, the amount of books I was reading at one point was insane. Like literally insane. Or listening to them, whatever I could do, right?
Traction's another one.
Dude, I spent a lot of money on my own mentoring from other business owners. I found successful people who were in business. Adrian Brown, a client that you and I used to share.
Yeah.
I used to ask him for insane advice about money and banking and certain things, right? So I think that you have to be willing to invest in your education. If you didn't go to school for business, when you become a barber and a barbershop owner, you better start investing in some sort of business education.
Yeah.
So that's where I think people go wrong. And again,
and then the problem is that, exactly. And a lot of the times I feel like they have the answers, or maybe I'm just ignorant to think they're ignorant, that they don't know where to get the answers. But like a lot of these issues stem from just the inexperience or the questions that they're not asking.
100%.
Which is like, you're having staff issues. I mean, it's obvious why you're having staff issues.
Well,
Like,
that's the old saying is people go like this to me now. They're like, well, education's expensive. I'm like, yeah, you know what's more expensive? Being uneducated.
exactly.
Do you know what
Yeah,
I mean? So it's
literally.
like, all right,
Literally.
but half.
What is the cost of you doing nothing?
Well, that's it. I'm like, so like, well, you know, dude, I've been on the phone with, you know, obviously we got to spend time with Josh and Sam at Menspire, which was beneficial for us. But we have also, you know, I've gone to Tony Robbins. I went to Tony Robbins because I wanted to become a better public speaker.
How much did you pay for that?
Too much.
There we go.
Okay, like that's the thing is like, so when people ask me, and I'll ask them, I'll be like, I know you took 2 precision cutting courses last year. That's great. But what did you do for your business? And they just look at you and like, well, I listened to a podcast. I'm like, I know, but that's someone talking about their experience of running their business. And you can only take little pieces from that with hopes that they apply.
Which transitions to why we are doing a 3-day business summit, because you need it all.
For sure.
You can't just be good at precision-based cutting anymore.
But
maybe back then, if you were good enough, you were able to dominate the market. But even back then, you still needed the skill
Well, how
set.
many people have you trained as of recently to show them to, in their area, to be the best at socials to drag people in?
For all of them.
Well, that's what I mean. I mean, I see your edits. I emulated your edits because I was like, well, I want traction as well.
Yeah.
People are seeing what your program has done and they're like, cool, this is how we have to get a client in the door. But this is what I say to people. You could be the best hair cutter in the world. But if you weren't willing to stand out on that street in front of our first shop, stopping people on bikes, forget it. No one's ever going to find out you're a
Well,
good hair
that's
cutter.
also the reason why I got so good, is because I was able to cut more heads. So it all kind of plays together,
Well,
right? You need to cut more heads to be able to practice.
So
more.
let me ask you this, okay? When I ask people now, especially my own students, I say to them, what's the hardest part of being in this industry? I'll ask them. And a lot of them will be like, sectioning. And I'm like, no, it's not sectioning. It's building clients.
Yes, it
because
is.
you wouldn't be able to section on people if someone's not sitting in the fucking chair.
Exactly.
So it's irrelevant, right? So we can go and take, and like I said.
So you know what's funny? What I tell people is what you used to tell me, which is like, you want more heads, but you can't do marketing yet because you don't have a good product. It becomes way harder to market yourself if you're not already confident to be able to cut someone's head.
For sure.
So I'm like, you need to go and talk to people on the street and then get them to come for free haircuts.
Dude.
Your first step is to cut more heads.
So
because eventually you get good enough to then be able to be willing to market yourself. But that is the first step regardless. Well, and yes, clients will be attracted through marketing, but if you don't have good marketing, you're not going to be able to attract clients.
Well, this is what I always say to people, like, do you think you're above coming into this industry and having to work 2 jobs and cut hair for free? Because you're not. So don't come in here and don't come to me and say that you don't have to do certain things because I did it, you did it. Like, dude, you were working 6 days at one point.
7.
I know that. Dude, I know.
They off.
You know what I mean?
I would drink Red Bulls in the back because I wanted to keep going. I'm getting not the healthiest.
I'm glad it was Red Bull. Some of them weren't doing Red Bull at the time. Let's leave those guys unnamed, okay? And they don't, they're doing their own thing now. But, the reality is that, I don't think you're above having to put in hard work. And the hardest skill is building clients. But we can make it easier for you now.
This is why I think this summit's going to be amazing. So the way I look at it is because they're going to finally get the truth. Like, genuinely, they're going to know the numbers. They're going to know exactly what we went through to be able to get to the place we're at now. Why I say this is because through marketing, sometimes you get a glimpse of what the reality is of our businesses. Like, maybe people see me travel around the world, but they don't really see the reality of what traveling looks like.
No.
Right? People see me on Instagram with all these followers, but you don't realize I'm struggling every single day to grow my business.
Buddy.
So I think it's like for you as well. Like, okay, you have all this staff, you have all this success. People are like, yeah, they got it easy. I hear that a lot. They got it easy. But you don't realize we're still struggling and we're still in the process of learning. But it's like what we did to get to this point, this is what the hard truth looks like. If you want to get to where we're at, this is what it looks like.
Well, that's funny you say that. So people have congratulated me on the school, they're like, congrats, you opened up the school. I always say, congratulate me in a year when it's still open and it's like got 40 students and it's rolling. Yeah. I'm like,
but the first part is you have the school. The second part is like, well, you got to still build the school.
Yeah, dude, like it's got to go.
Exactly.
It's got to go. But
money needs to come in.
But it's funny that we're talking about this. And that's why when people come to the summit that we're doing, I'm going to put the numbers up on the screen.
Yeah,
and that's when they go like this, holy.
Yeah.
And I'll do it in New York in 2 weeks from now as well. Like when I actually show them physically, because I'm not going to put that on Instagram.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like there's certain things that I'm saving for people to come and actually have the experience and actually show you.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? And my big thing that I show people, and it's funny because it does complement your program quite a lot. And that's when I realized, and I'm glad we started to reconnect, because my job is to manage the barbers that you're building. And you got to have employee roadmaps, right? You got to have an amazing commission sort of scaling program so they understand where they can be. You have to know how to onboard people correctly. You have to be able to vet and understand if this is a good employee or not. And we also have an amazing in-house training program that we show you how to train someone from day 1 to get them to year 5. A lot of people come out of the schools at this point and you still have to put at least 6 months into refining them, right? It was different for us at the time. We had the time, and obviously we've scaled and opened up different businesses and have multiple shops now, but you have to have infrastructure and you have to have, and this is why I said, and I learned through COVID, and again, we don't have to talk about it, but I started watching the old 80s McDonald's training videos and the training that McDonald's did to make sure that you can work all stations. And the funny part about it is they hire within McDonald's where you can basically become a manager and work into head office without probably going to university. Do you know what I mean? And I started to realize certain things. I'm like, we have to be able to build people within here because if we don't, we're going to be losing employees. And it's not necessarily going to open their own shop. They're going to leave the industry. And we don't want people leaving the industry. We want people to continue to grow in the industry. You kind of have to
reflect and realize maybe you did a bad job.
For sure. Right? Do you know what I mean? And don't think for 2 seconds that I would sit here and not tell people at our summit and they'll get the God's honest truth from me.
This is what, and here's the good thing. I think this is what I always say. A lot of people don't open businesses thinking of what the end goal is because a lot of the times they open businesses not realizing what's the life that they want to build.
For sure.
Right? Because what do we always say? It's like if you want to make more money, sometimes it's not the best thing to open a business. It's better you fucking rent a chair and you literally make the cash in your pocket without having to deal with anything.
Wait until I show them the numbers.
And take that money and invest it into something else. What we're gonna do, I think, in this business summit is like, okay, you want to open a business? This is what it looks like. The first 5 years, you might actually make fuck all. It's gonna be all going back into the business. You might have zero time to spend with your family because this is what it takes. But if that's not the life you want, then maybe the suite option is the option for you, right? Dude. Maybe it's the education route if you want to travel. Like we got to show them everything, all the possibilities and opportunities, but they got to think of like, what is the end goal in mind?
Most likely, well, this is the big thing that we're going to do at the summit as well. I'm going to show you how to work that business the first 5 years to basically get you to year 10. And I always say this to people now as well. The Glassbox Barbershop brand is still in infancy. It's just a well-oiled machine now that we've curated. wait until you see what I do over the next 10 years. That's the difference, because now we got this strong foundation.
you have the foundation.
We didn't go crazy with scaling and opening more shops and causing more headaches. Would I be open to scaling? Yes, I am, but I'm way more strategic now. I have everything laid out for me that when we open it, we know the design, we know the furniture, we know the people, we know the location. Like, it's not guessing anymore.
But what people don't realize, it took you 10 years to
It took us 10 years. But you would be crazy not to come to the summit, because I'm going to give it to you. I'm going to literally give it to you, because you're going to be able to see exactly how I did it. Do you know what I mean? Which I've done the pain points for you.
Well, that's what you're paying for. You're paying for to speed track this process. You could all figure it out yourselves. Like, that's the honest truth. But what is the cost of you trying to learn and figure this out? Will end up costing 1,000 times more than you coming and figuring this out.
So we're
for 3
expediting
days.
it for you.
Or at least like maybe start planting a seed in your brain of like what needs to happen next for your life. But I have a feeling, this is what I can guarantee one thing. I could guarantee by the 3 days when they're done, they'll know what they want to do after.
Buddy,
they're
going to be exhausted.
Yeah.
When people leave the program with me, they're like, Taylor Levins from Chicago, right? Who's now in Houston, just was 2 days with us last week. And she left like this. She goes, I've never heard and taken in so much information. If anybody wants to message her and ask her, that she was like, that is the most information that me and Mitchell from the school gave her, because she wants to do a school. And we gave her the full blueprint of what it did, what the lease looked like, what the curriculum looks like, the whole thing.
So at least now you can make a decision. Does this make sense?
For
is
sure.
this what you want to do?
For sure.
Because this is what it looks like.
Well, that's why. And again, you and I talked about this. We've made it overly affordable. Right? I'm charging $2,500 for 3 days. They get my exact Pinnacle program for 3 days for $1,000.
People don't realize what we charge for 1 day, one-on-one with, like, for a single day. Like, this is like, I'm telling you guys, like, this is very affordable.
Yeah.
And why is because we want to show the industry.
And we have Klarna, so you can literally do a payment plan. You know,
if you don't come to this, I don't even know what to tell you.
Well, that's it, man. I think that the value of you being able to build barbers, show them how to do.
And I'm not saying this, I mean it when I say this. This will most likely be one of the last classes I do in Canada for a while.
Well,
and the reason why is because I'm going to Florida.
Well, good for you. Congrats.
So, yeah.
Is that the LLC I saw today?
The LLC.
Okay, congrats, man.
Thank you, man.
That's really good, dude. Congrats, man. That's sick. Yeah, man. Like, again, we're trying to show people. And here's the other thing: the economy has changed. So what we're talking about even 10 years ago is not reflective of what's happening now. And we've had guys come to our Pinnacle program, and I know there's already guys who signed up who are in Pinnacle, who are in LTC, who are still coming to the summit.
Yes,
because they're realizing, oh shit. And they'll message me like, Peter, I'm applying this, and I'm applying Alex, and the business it's getting better, it's getting busier, it's getting stronger, and I'm the best. And that's why I say to people, I'm like, dude, don't try to compete with me.
You know what's crazy?
Do well in your own area.
You know what blew my mind at the event? We were just at the Toronto event, Chapter 3, and where was it? Vaughan.
In
right?
Vaughan, yeah.
And people came up to me and they said, my workshop 3-4 years ago and my LTC program 2 years ago has changed their life. They're like, they have more staff now. They're able to scale. They're able to charge more money. They're literally coming up to me. Cam, one of the guys, he's like, dude, I'm able to provide for my family. Like, you have no idea how much I thank you. And this was like 2 years ago.
There you go.
You know what I mean? Like this, I truly think they will have clarity on what to do next.
Well, that's what I mean. And again, you and I have continued to grow. And with that growth, there's been people and deniers of certain things. And I'm like, okay, well, how about this? You bring your numbers and I'll bring mine and we'll lay them out.
Exactly.
Okay. So that's when people want to talk shit to me. I'm like, okay, no problem. Me and Andrew will show you our numbers and then you show me yours.
Well, what's this saying?
Right?
People that are doing better than you will never talk shit.
No. And that's the thing. And I'm glad that's why, again, a lot of people don't know our personal dynamic, and I feel at times, and I was saying to my wife, Caitlin, I was like, I'm actually truly proud of you because I think at the time when you went to do things, you knew you were going to do something and look what you've done now, which I think is pretty cool.
Well, what's interesting is like, again, the whole point of this business summit is because I want to be completely honest. Like, what am I doing in my life? What's happening? I'm closing my shop down in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Why? Because I realized that's not the passion I want. That's not where I want to put my energy and my focus on, right? It didn't work out for me because...
But there's people in your boat right now. Yes. And I mean, you've built this, listen, you've scaled an online business.
I want to give them clarity of what they should be doing.
For sure.
At least I'm not going to tell you what to do, but I'm going to show you exactly what I went through and you make a decision if that's still what you want to do.
Well, here's the funny thing. And again, I was saying this to another educator who you and I both know very well. And I was basically saying to him, the biggest problem even with in-person education right now is we got a lot of great haircutters, but they're not getting the business advice while they're on the technical course, right? So they're coming there. I'm like, dude, you're sick of cutting hair, but like, let me show you how to like run a business, manage a team, build a team. Like there's so much more to it. Even if you want to become an educator, you still have to run a business. You still have to know how to deal with certain things. You know what I mean? And that can even go down to your taxes or how to even write a fucking email
100%.
correctly to a client. I see people who are educators and I'm like, man, the lack of professionalism that you bring to the table is why I get booked over you all the time.
Well, I also feel like just teaching precision-based cutting is just, it's not giving them the actual tools necessary for them to become successful.
No, not
It's
anymore.
like, it's not enough, unfortunately.
No.
Like, it's like, what can you really do with it? Maybe you get booked up for a class, but then it's like, if you're not business savvy, at the end of the day, I always talk about this in business. It's like, cool, you might be making a lot of money, but what are your profit margins? How can you reduce costs? Like, where's the money going? How can you be, because that's what matters most. You gotta be more profitable.
I think a majority of them end up bleeding because you know what it's like to be on the road. Like, dude, when I was doing classes, I was doing a bunch of stuff, and then I realized I was coming home and I was like, well, this doesn't make sense, until you started to like go through the line items being like, okay, not doing that anymore, not doing that anymore, you know, flight and travel and all that stuff. So
having a plan. It's like, what do you need to save in the business? What is the goal with that money? Like, where are you going to put that money for it to grow?
Here's a big one. And this is something I was going to mention to you anyways, outside of the camera. A lot of guys in my age right now, so I'm 38. Okay. When you have kids and you're like usually probably between the ages of 35 and 45, this is called the life squeeze. And most guys and most people don't make it out because things become more expensive. Kids, travel, mortgage, right? And the thing is like a lot of guys who are my age right now running barbershops, building teams should also come to this because you're gonna notice that your life is gonna become more expensive. You have young kids now, dude. I have a 7-year-old. 7-year-old is expensive. Do you know what I mean? It's no joke. There's gonna be braces. There's gonna be universities.
So
there's gonna be college.
Who should come to this?
Anybody who wants to stand a chance, and again, they can think me and you are arrogant for having this conversation. Anyone who wants to stand a chance, because I'm still in the game and I'm the most competitive.
It's true.
How about that?
How old? 38 years old, still in the game. Dude, 20 years in the industry.
Bro, as Josh LaMonica says, I'll sleep when I'm dead, right? And I wake up every morning. I'm competitive with you. And guys, I'm competitive with everybody.
If you can't see, it's just pure passion. And we just love what we do and we want to help.
Well, that's why I think sometimes, you know, and it's funny.
Arrogance
how about this? How about this? Okay. One of the guys I was teaching last week, Ben Fish from Halifax, he goes, some of the guys in the shop think that you act like you're the man. And he spent 3 days with me and he goes, Peter, I give him a hug every day. And I said, and he knows I give the shirt off my back. It's not arrogance. It's dedication, discipline, and passion because I love what I do. Every single day, and you can't take that away from me. Do you know what I mean?
So say what you want to say.
And but I also worked for the best people in the industry. I worked with Ray Chavello, who's very successful, controlled the Aveda network in Canada for 20 years until Estee Lauder purchased it and took it away from him.
Right.
He still has salons that are open, that are successful. We're training new people for him. I'm still doing business with him.
He's still in the game. He's still in the business.
Absolutely.
How old is he?
Right? I mean, Ray's got to be in his late 50s, lives in Naples, Florida, still very involved with his color line, very involved with his business, you know? And people can say all the shit they want to say about Ray. I hope they're saying the same shit about me, okay, when I'm his age, because he's been successful. Yeah. But I also think about my first boss, Walter Wong, who owned W Lifestyle. Still an amazing career hairdresser, overly talented, overly successful, great businessman, okay? I worked with great business people, right? And my thing is I've taken things and I've emulated them. And this is what I say to people all the time. I'm like, you think you're above going to learn from people who, how about this? You don't even have to like me. I don't even care if you like me, but you'll learn from me, right?
Ooh, I like that.
How about that? You don't have to like me, but you'll learn from me.
Yeah.
And you know what? Half the time they come and learn from me, they turn
like
around,
you.
He's an all right guy. You know what I mean? And that's the thing is like, dude, I don't have to make apologies to anybody, right? And I'm not out here to impress anybody because the difference is I don't show off, I show up. That's the big difference. I show up every day. The staff get 110%. The business, the brand, everything gets 110%. And if you're not willing to put in 110% and you're sitting in your shop on your phone wondering why you're not busy, I'll fucking show you why.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, dude, it's obvious why you're extremely successful.
Well, thank you.
I'm very proud of you. If I've never said it, now you could hear it.
Great.
And if it wasn't genuinely, if it wasn't for Glassbox, I wouldn't be inspired to open my shop. I wouldn't probably have the opportunities to. There wasn't anything like it in Canada. To be honest, I don't know if you know, I was planning on staying in London when we went to the class. Okay. But I said, well, that's too far. That's a bigger risk. I was very young. I didn't have any money.
How old were you when you started with us?
18.
Jesus.
Yeah, so Toronto was the best bet. And then Glenn was coming. So I was like, let me make that decision.
It was actually going to be MJ first.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, it was supposed to be MJ.
And he did come, I think, for a couple of days, didn't he?
He came and did some training down the line.
Yeah, I mean, that was a very big pivotal point in my career. If it wasn't for Glassbox, I definitely wouldn't be where I'm at today.
Well, the funny part is I always say this to people, you know, it was funny to watch your skill level grow quickly.
Well, people don't also realize, like, everyone.
They don't, I watched you the way you worked.
Exactly.
I watched the way you worked.
But also I was also very hated in the shop. I was a little arrogant piece of shit. Like, I had to learn a lot very quickly. But not only that, like as an educator, dude, when I started teaching, I was doing it for pretty much free, but I wanted to because I knew it was a skill set that I needed to learn from. Everyone now is charging money for it.
Absolutely.
I always say it's like cutting hair. You got to get the reps in, right? Like when we started working, like getting the education up,
but I
was starting with you guys. Like I was the third educator, right?
Yeah.
And then what people don't realize, I still went on stages and I fucked up. Like
remember,
I used to
throw you in the classes under the bus.
I know, and I would be very scared.
And I'd be like, talk.
Literally.
You know what I mean?
And I would be shitting myself, but this is how you learn. So all these things that we're talking about now, these are the things we're going to be talking more, and we're going to talk to you guys about exactly how to get to those positions to be able to do it.
First of all, if you are thinking about coming to our business summit, first of all, the value that you get, me and you, for that price is insane. Number one. Number two, we're having Squire come over. Squire's been very supportive of us, and they're going to be introducing some cool stuff and talking about the business side as well. Do you know what I mean? And then between your LTC program and my business program,
and we'll have some nuggets.
And we'll have some nuggets. And we're going to do some creative stuff, and we're going to do some cutting.
And we also
but that's to be expected from me and you.
Exactly. But also what's cool is like a lot of people have been asking me is like, I want more intimate time with you. I want to be able to talk to you in person and really get that one-on-one time. We also have private dinners. If you want to join our gold package, you'll be able to get access to me and Peter. We'll go hang out. We'll go outside together. I
think the guys from Squire will be at those dinners as well.
Perfect.
Right? We're also getting the bar at the end of the night.
Your team will come. Some of my team. John is coming as well.
How about this? This is what I say to people now, and I said this at the trade show the other day. I said, you don't know who you're going to meet there. Could be an employer, could be a business partner, could be a friend, could be an educator, could be an opportunity.
Well, dude,
and that's
every
why
time
I think
I've
that people don't get
invested to go to an event that was business related, you want to know the most value? It was always in the people and the relationships that I'd built on top of the education.
And that's what I'm saying is like, I'm so glad. And you got to remember, even when you started with me, we used to go to everything.
People don't realize we barely promoted it. We did one video. We sold probably about 50 tickets so far.
No joke.
People are traveling all over North America for this event.
I'll open my phone and we'll have sold more.
Yeah.
Right? Squire sent 12. I mean, we're talking to a couple other sponsors. They're sending people.
We barely promoted. We did one Instagram video.
Nothing. We've done nothing. We've done nothing.
So this is gonna sell out. A lot of people have been asking for it. What's the date?
October 19th, 20th, and 21st. If you're not there,
I don't know what to tell you.
Be square.
Be square.
Okay? But again, if you want to scale your business, you want to fortify your brand, you want to build your team, you want to build barbers, you want to understand social media, you want to do anything creative, you want to spend time with us. Again, you'll be in the Glassbox Institute. You'll be in the facility. It's not like me and you are running out the door when the day ends. We'll be there. We'll be chatting. You'll get to hang out with our team. I have people on my team that will be there. People from your team will be there. Like, again, how much would you have paid to have gone to this?
Can I be honest?
Yeah.
For a 3-day event, easily $6,000, $5,000 to $6,000.
Dude, I've spent more than what I've done at other stuff.
Yeah. So again, you will get hands-on as well.
Sure.
Is there cutting? It's like,
yeah.
Yes, but that's what you guys think you need. And we're going to give you what you want.
Sure.
But you're going to realize all the things that you're missing out on, which is the business, the marketing, the social media, everything.
Yeah,
right? We're going to talk about it all.
And to be honest with you, challenged everybody else out in the world. We're the first of its kind, which there's like no crazy DJ. Like, you know what I mean? We're dialing it in now where it's just like, let's not focus on like the
We're not selling products.
No.
We're not going to have 17 booths.
No.
We are strictly information.
Not a trade show. It's not a trade
education.
show. And that's what, like I was saying at the trade show, I'm like, this isn't a trade show, dude. This is like, you're going to come and you better bring a pen, your iPad, and take notes through the whole thing, right? And I don't care if you film it. Film the whole goddamn thing as far as I'm concerned.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? You will leave with more information than you're going to know what to do with.
Yeah.
And you're going to have to put it in ChatGPT to compartmentalize like every single section.
Yes.
Right?
Cool.
So that's
I'm very excited.
Listen,
and what do we say? If you're not there,
be square. You know what I mean?
Peter,
Listen,
appreciate the conversation.
Appreciate you, bro.
See you soon, man.